this week we're looking at the benefits that come with using 2 cameras on your filmmaking productions. Hello, my name is Cade and this is DSLRguide. So firstly I just want to do a quick disclaimer to say that it's not essential that you have 2 cameras. I think enough people spend too much money on cameras as it is, so I would just like to clear that up before I start in this video, that it really isn't essential, but it is helpful for some certain types of filmmakers. So I'm going to be going over the benefits today in this week's video. So the first thing is that if you film interviews, it's really helpful to have 2 cameras so that you can have 2 different camera angles, usually a wider shot and a tighter shot. And that way you have a lot more creative choice in terms of when you punch in to that close-up and when you decide to stay on the wide shot, but also it helps you to cover up any cuts that you wanted to make in the interview. And the same thing applies for a wedding, when you know that it's only going to happen once, so you want to have as many different angles as possible. Now, a few weeks ago I was doing a shoot of some presentations, some talks, and again, that was a time when it was really useful to have 2 camera angles, and then that way I could set them off at different times, which means that I wouldn't be restricted by the 12-minute record limit on cameras like this one. Now, having a second camera can also be very valuable to someone who's doing a narrative film too, because if you're doing like a stunt, then it'd be very helpful to have 2 cameras so that you don't have to do it more times. You know, you can get 2 angles in one go if it's something that you don't want to miss or that you don't want to have to redo. And the same thing applies for if you want to really quickly shoot a dialogue scene. If you're like on a really tight budget, then you might be able to just have 2 cameras and film both sides of the dialogue scene if you set it up correctly, and then that way you can be a lot quicker because everything will happen a lot faster. Or you could use the second camera as a behind the scenes camera when it's not being used for the other stuff, or as a photography camera if it's a DSLR. So even if you're doing narrative stuff, there are plenty of uses for having a second camera, but it doesn't have to be quite as good maybe as the A camera, and that's a common thing, is that you have a more expensive A camera and a less expensive B camera so that you don't have to spend so much money. Now, it's also good to have a backup in case your primary camera breaks. Now, I went for about 1.5 years using just 1 camera, and if that had broken, then it would have taken me many months to save up for a replacement. So in that period of time, I wouldn't have been able to make money doing my freelance stuff, and this show would have been a much lower quality and all that sort of thing. So if you're doing like full-time video work, then it really is worthwhile to have a second one in case something goes wrong. So for the second part of this video, as I always do with the Why Filmmakers Should series, I'm going to give you some tips for how you can get started if you want to purchase a second camera. So the first thing is that obviously you'll need a lot more equipment, and this is something I've found out, is that you'll need twice as many SD cards, twice as many batteries, you probably need some more quick release plates and a second tripod, plus more space to store the extra gear and possibly a second walk around lens. And you'll also need to take some time. In my case, I had to set up Magic Lantern and my picture profiles and make sure that everything was set up so that I was ready to shoot with both cameras. Another thing I did was I put tape on the front of the camera. This one's got a white piece and the other one's got a black piece, and that way I can quickly identify which camera's which. And my final tip goes along with what I said at the start of the video, which is that I think people already spend too much money on their cameras. So for instance, what I've done here is I've got 2 T3i's, and you can pretty much get T3i's or T4i's, I think are very similar price. You get 2 of them for the price of one 70D, for example. Now the 70D is a very popular camera, but I think that T3i is only a fraction worse and it's half the price, which means I can get 2 for the price of one 70D. So that's the kind of thing I'm recommending here, is that you spend a little bit less on your camera. Rather than just getting like a second GH4 or something, you save all that money that you've saved and invest in audio and lighting gear, which is the stuff that really makes a difference. So while I do think that it can be good to have 2 cameras, I really don't think that you should be spending too much of your budget on cameras, because like I said, it's the rest of the stuff that makes the big difference. And I'm afraid I'm going to be saying this lots of times on this channel because I really do think it's important. So again, that's it for this week. Now, I've done lots of these Why Filmmakers Should videos, so I'll put a link in the description to where you can find the rest of them. There's all sorts of stuff about why you should learn graphic design, why you should learn 3D graphics, and of course I'll do plenty more of these in the future. So yeah, that's it for this week, and I'll see you next time.